Welcome to episode 785 of Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, here tonight with the co host of the show, Jen, the Arcane Observer. And we'll be talking about thunderstorms and lightning and the paranormal. As always, you can find all episodes of the show and links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, which is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. Support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. Please check out all the links in every episode description for all the friends of the show, of course, including Jen, the Arcane Observer, and Michael Strange and Trouble Minds Radio and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows along with this one. So, and that's it's online live 24/7. So, I believe that takes care of everything. So, this is something we've touched on before. This topic of storms and possibly consciousness being connected to them and using them and manipulating them. We did a show on this once quite a while ago now. Seems like it anyway. But I thought that since I've had experiences over the last several years that seem to lead back to this topic, it wouldn't hurt to sort of cover it again. And so that's why we are here. So yeah, just glad to be here. Thank you all for being here as well. And also, welcome back, Jen, to the show. Thank you for being here as well.
Hey, yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to hearing the experiences you've had recently. It's true, we've covered this before, and it was really interesting. The idea that all the things that we learned about it, and as we were talking about, maybe we'll retouch on some of the stuff that we talked about from that show. But I know that you have some articles and you've had some experiences, so I'm looking forward to hearing about those. And I'm really glad to be back on because I wasn't able to make it the last couple of times, so I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I went on with the show, but it definitely was not the same, and not as easy without your help. So I really appreciate you being here whenever you're able, and it's just nice to hear you again. So
I am glad to be, so I look forward to hearing. So what happened? What were your experiences?
yeah, so I guess I'll start with those. I've had three experiences total with storms where the timing could be weird.
Yeah.
In that the first one happened not long after my first sighting of the blue lights, the blue light outside in the sky.
I
Of
remember
my
that.
outside my apartment, and I it was amazing because I had the sighting of this blue light, and there was this telepathic contact with it. And I had, of course, everyone joked about this after that I was crazy for doing it, but I said, I'd love to see you better. I'd love if you would come closer and come inside my apartment and everything, and
Summoning it, basically.
yeah, so yes, and I got picked on and or joked with and or told off for doing that, but and so, but of course, nothing really happened with that. The light went away eventually, but like 2 days later, we had this huge storm that knocked out power in my area for like a day, and
Wow.
it was the timing was like, I hope I didn't cause that, because that was not fun.
Well, you probably
Doing
did.
it. I know, and it just cost me money and everything with food, and I lost, and
Oh,
but
jeez.
yeah, so but yeah, so that was the first one. The second one was when my last book came out, my book of experience Salsido Paranormal Experiences.
Hmm.
We had a big storm while I was waiting for my first box of copies to arrive of that book. And again, the power went out. And the storm went on for all afternoon, all evening, and I laid down and just tried to sleep because there was nothing
Yeah.
else to do. And I woke up late that night, and when it was quieter, but the power was still off, and looked outside, and because I was seeing heat, like lightning off in the distance. It wasn't right by me, but And I noticed there was a box on the ground outside my door, and my first box of books had arrived.
Oh, wow.
Right in the middle of that storm, apparently. So it's just weird things that are like I can write them off, but also maybe not. I mean, that just brings up the question: is there consciousness that is in storms, manipulating storms, directing storms to come and go based on other events, other thoughts people have? Again, the first one I invited whatever it was out there to come closer, and it didn't at the time. But then we had that huge storm, and that second time, it was sort of a big deal for me releasing this book of most of my experiences, and
Yeah.
sort of the first book tied to the podcast, the copies of it finally come, but they come in the middle of a huge storm. Um,
Yeah.
so so then I had one more experience just recently, a couple of weeks ago. I was on I was sitting in as sort of guest co-host of Michael Strange's show, Total Minds Radio, and I do that sometimes, which is really amazing that he lets me do that because
Yeah, that's
it's his
always
show.
fun.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I don't do it every show because some shows I don't feel like I have enough to really to do that. Like I don't have enough information to sit there and just sit there and not say much. So
Right.
I don't call into those shows. But so and it I forgot now what the original topic of that show was, but we came to talking about we actually had a call from MJ, who calls into that show a lot and has been calling into our call-in shows here a lot too, and talking about a weird experience with a thunderstorm showing up, and so he was talking, and as he was talking about his own experience, I started hearing thunder in the distance,
Oh, that's cool.
and it got louder over time, and eventually it was so loud the people listening, a couple of people that were listening to Mike's show while I was talking, they actually heard the thunder through my headset.
Nice. Yeah.
So it didn't knock the power out, luckily, but I was it was going strong for a while there. So we have these experiences, and I just wonder how many other people have had similar experiences where there's these either sort of important life events or just these conversations about this topic in general, where is there some kind of consciousness in storms that is somehow for whatever reason drawn to the areas because of that, um
Hmm.
or is it something else, or I don't know how to explain that, but that's three different experiences that they all seem to have interesting timing and or connections to them.
Right. Yeah, I think that a lot of people do have those kinds of experiences. I mean, there's always this it's sort of a trope, it's a dark and stormy night, that sort of thing. And I don't know, there's something about the atmospheric, the weather and events that are happening in people's lives, and sometimes it does seem like it's lining up with, the mood, or it sets a mood for sure. So it's an
Hmm.
all pervasive setting when the weather is affected like that. So if you have that happening, I mean, it's not necessarily a rule, I don't think, but it definitely has sort of an atmospheric impact, don't you think? Like it feels like it's changing. It sort of makes it feel like it's changing the way that the environment of the setting of whatever house or whatever location. It's very memorable. It makes it stand out more so because it's not like depending on the location, because I mean, some places they have storms all the time,
Hmm.
but another time, I think that there is some type of effect where it feels like it is. And then in some ways, I think that it likely does. It reminded me of like the way that, people talk about summoning storms and weather. There's this,
Right.
this idea that you could possibly affect if you were to go out with some kind of intention. There's all these old stories and, the classic, you know, well, even like the rain dance sort of theory, basically like being able to affect the weather or to summon the winds or something like that. It does remind me of that in a way, that there could be that possibility of that being something that might exist, somehow some kind of connection with people and with the weather that Is that possible, I wonder? Is it possible to manipulate the weather, not through like the means that we've heard about with cloud seeding and things like that, but just through like, I don't know, magic or something, or a force of will, or certain events, if it's sort of like it's acknowledgement from the gods or something, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of, or of the spirits of some kind. Like there is an intelligence to the storm. Oh, that reminds me one last thing. I've heard
Yes.
about that they've done studies where they've put these like sort of weather, some kind of like these orbs basically that like kind of read the the I guess the atmospheric electricity of these storms. And it's like a person having like like just like this massive emotional outburst. I don't know, I
Mm.
have to find that study and post it, but the patterns or something like that, like of a storm, are basically like very similar to a human mind just going crazy or something. So that's really interesting that it's almost like this. I think it depends on the kind of storm, but I think that's really fascinating because storms feel different in different ways. Some storms are really like calm and they're relaxing, and others are just like it's really intense, really intense. So I think it just kind of depends. Oh, some of them are
Yeah.
often chaotic.
Yep. I mean, even without the electricity or whatever that is, or the energy around, you still have just light and sound that's all around you at that time. And I mean, those are just different forms of, in a way, of energy, and one way or another, they're similar. And so it makes sense that they would have effects, and possibly different effects with different, when there's different intensities of either of those,
Hmm.
the patterns of them. I mean, when the storm is right on top of you versus when it's a little ways away, I could see that that those things also having effects on people as well.
There's always that kind of feeling like when in movies and things like that, or even in books, if you're kind of visualizing as you're reading it. There's like, say that you're watching a movie and it's kind of a mystery or a thriller. And then when that storm rolls in, it changes the whole atmosphere of the film. You feel like you're in for something happening during that storm throughout that part of the film or something. I think life kind of, it mimics that in a way. It feels like that sometimes, like you're kind of settling in for the storm and wondering what's going to happen in it. But, what are the implications of paranormal activity in relation to that? Is it more likely, or maybe it affects the mind? And so therefore it makes people more likely to have paranormal experiences or something.
Or more open to having them. It's the idea of the storm. There's no way to predict what the storm is going to be like. If you're just,
Right.
unless you have all kinds of sensors or whatever, and you're like an actual meteorologist or whatever that's watching all the models, and even then, they're
Sometimes
not.
they're wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's this. Even for the ones that are quieter storms that sound nice, you still don't know where they're going to go, what way they're going to travel, or if they're going to stay quiet.
Right.
Sometimes they can change too. So yeah, that's definitely and so yeah, so often in fiction, like in the start of a big action scene, big battle scene in a movie, or in stories, novels, or whatever, important scenes in a book, there'll be a thunderstorm happening, and it's
Right.
just like this gathering of energy from all these characters that is sort of being mirrored by the storm that happens. So
Yeah.
and that goes back to, I mean, mythology, and the people have been aware of storms, and how powerful they are, and throughout time, and even um, tried to figure out what was causing them, and had ideas about there being, uh, again, whatever you want to call them, gods or spirits or just forces in nature that were manipulating the weather and causing the storms because of their own agendas, whether they were. So I have this article here about mythology.
Yeah.
It's from, let me see here. Let me scroll back up a little ways and find it. It is it's actually from a a website about, like, it's an electrical company. Uh,
That's
but
interesting.
it is. They're not looking at paranormal strictly. They're looking at more mythology, and of course they use it for like an advertisement, but still the mythology part, it's very it's very well summarized there. But unveiling ancient myths, electricity in mythology and folklore
Hmm.
is the article here, and I like it. I like it because it it didn't. It summarized everything very well. Put it all, just said it all pretty quickly. So
Mhm.
it has, and it even has an article, but then it has like some bullet point list here in the near the end. It says, "What is the myth story about lightning and thunder?" And it says in Greek mythology, tells of Zeus, of course, the king of gods, who harnessed the power of lightning and thunder, and would cast thunderbolts upon earth, either as a sign of his wrath or to dispense divine justice. So the idea that if there's a storm coming, who messed up? What happened? What did someone do that is making literally to the minds of the people at the time the gods angry? And in any part of the world, nature is angry. Who someone did something, and now there's consequences for it. Of course, in Norse legend, Thor, the god of thunder, wields the mighty hammer Mjolnir, and I'm probably saying that wrong. Uh, each swing produced lightning, and its impact resounded as thunder, uh, seen as Thor battling against giants or venturing through the skies. So that's also fascinating. That thunder would be either the sound of fighting, of battle, or just the sound of travel. I think it's fascinating that these things can mean the storms in their own way are so you don't know for sure what's going on. Even with mythology, there's different beliefs in that. Um, what is the so I'm continuing on with the summary here. What is the belief in ancient people about thunder and lightning? It says in ancient Greece, they believed that lightning was a tool of the gods to communicate their pleasure or displeasure with mortals. Vikings perceived thunder as the sound. Okay, where do? Oh, it's the sound of Thor's chariot, and lightning, manifestation of his powerful hammer. Chinese traditions associated lightning with celestial dragons, seeing the flash as the glint of a dragon's scale or eye. And of course, I remember this much. I very little about Chinese mythology or folklore, but the dragon there was not a negative thing in a lot of cases. There was they've used that figure to sort of, I believe, symbolize prosperity, and just it wasn't a negative thing. But also for Native American tribes, for tribes like the Navajo, thunder represented the voice of the thunderbird, while lightning was seen as the glare of this powerful spirit's eyes. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no. No, it just seems like it does feel like there is some type of intelligence to the storms. It seems like it's the mind of nature or something having some type of it's like it's alive. Storms do feel like that. They feel like they are intelligent, like they decide, which way they're going to go and how they're going to interact with the environment. It does feel like it's hard not to sort of feel like it is intelligently interacting, or that it is aware, or sometimes not, that it's just blindly, like in some type of, expression of rage or otherwise of energy. It does seem like it's doing that, and you're kind of just at the mercy of it. It's these sources of like powerful nature movements, whether it's like earthquakes or any type of, strong winds and all of that. It does feel like it's nature expressing itself. It seems, you know, it's easy to personify it. And then it feels like it is kind of, affecting the way that we feel too, that it changes the way that, and it's humbling, a very humbling feeling, you know.
Definitely, because I mean, as an individual, there's not much we can do to easily stop a storm.
Not really.
That's not going to happen most times. And yes, there are people that like I don't doubt that group consciousness can affect the weather overall.
That's what I was
Especially,
thinking too about that
um,
earlier.
yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if they can affect it and direct it and things like that, which in itself is sort of paranormal in a way too. But
Mm,
um, but when it comes to the individual, yeah, I don't know that there. I mean, unless you're extremely powerful, I guess in a way, and which I can't rule that out either, because again, people we know there's telepathy, telekinesis, and people.
Oh, I don't know.
Um,
Yeah.
I wonder if there is something to do with that. I mean, maybe not on a huge scale, but it makes me
Hopefully
curious now
not.
about that. Yeah, really. No one needs no one needs storms to just show up all of a sudden. But
It reminds me of like when people are, like they're like, may God strike me with lightning, da 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 da, if I'm whatever, And I don't know, that seems really, it always, even though it seems like, well, no, of course the lightning's not aware of it, but it always feels like you're really you're really testing the fates there, it seems, It just feels like that.
yeah, definitely. So there's just one little section left. We might as well go through it in this article here. And it
Okay.
says, "What does lightning symbolize in mythology?" First thing it has here is divine wrath. In many cultures, lightning was seen as a direct expression of a god's or deity's anger or displeasure. Potency and power, the silent force and unpredictability of lightning made it a symbol of raw power and strength. Messenger of gods. For some, lightning was a divine message from the heavens, a sign or an omen, which again goes back to my experiences. I mean, were those storms? I don't know. It was pretty significant when they happened. Purity and cleansing. The blinding brightness of lightning was also occasionally linked to themes of purity and the cleansing of evil, which is also fascinating. Thinking about how lightning could cause fires in places and destroy
Mhm.
things. And I mean, depending on your point of view, that could be if that was a bad place for whatever reason. If there are bad people living in a certain place and it got destroyed by lightning, then I could see people sort of attributing it to that. But so that's really what I wanted to cover from that article. But I think that's a good one. I put it in the show notes and sources channel in Discord here. So y'all can check it out and read it. And I just found it fascinating. This is not from a paranormal theme website. It's from an actual electrical company. So
That's
I
cool.
thought that was pretty neat.
There's like a whole mythos too about lightning struck wood. Like if you like when I used to live out in the woods and I'd be looking for firewood and sometimes I'd come across lightning struck trees and the wood that'd come off of it and be blackened from the lightning hitting the trees. It was pretty frequent that the lightning would hit the mountainside because of the elevation. And I've heard myths about that you shouldn't burn in your fireplace lightning struck wood, that it's
Mm.
like it's uniquely special in some way. And then I remember one lightning storm out there because the way that my house was situated, it was like kind of on the side of like it was built on just the side of that mountain, and then there was a valley below, and there was a little bit more of the mountain above my house. And one time a storm came through, and the lightning was so crazy, it was sparking through the ventilation pipe of my hot water heater and it was
Oh
sparking
wow.
through the window to my faucet in my kitchen. It was terrifying. It was just
Oh man.
lightning all around the whole mountainside. It was just hitting all over the place because of the elevation. And it was pretty scary and amazing. But I moved completely to the middle of the house and just was like as close to the center of the house after seeing that. And I've never seen that before. I've never seen lightning enter to the inside the house like that. Never didn't even know what that could. I've heard of people getting struck by lightning inside their house, but I've never seen anything like that. And it was just incredible. And everything was on pause till that moved on, you know.
Yeah, the terror of the storm. Listening. Oh, DG says she's listening during a thunderstorm. I believe that's yeah.
Oh, nice.
Hopefully it's a minor one, Dawn. But
Yes.
yeah, I have a friend that had um he was online one night during a thunderstorm and he had his headset on and the lightning hit near enough where it went into his headset and gave
Oh,
him
sure.
a headache for like a
Wow.
major headache for a couple of days. So
That's scary.
yeah, I always think about that whenever there's a thunderstorm happening and I have my headset on. I'm like, oh man, I kind of try to finish whatever I'm doing and get that headset off as soon as I can if that
Right.
happens. I mean, probably the chances are who knows how small, but
I don't
But
know. It's
yeah,
not something that I want to test either. Not at all.
exactly. It was funny because I was joking about that on the night of that last experience where I was on Mike's show and that thunderstorm popped up and I had my headset on and I was like,
Yeah.
well, the good thing the show's almost done. I'm gonna take this headset off as soon as it's done. So yeah, it's pretty wild. But yeah, it's looking at the chat here. Theo had some good things in the chat above here. I didn't get to read earlier
Oh,
about storms and everything. Just that there is absolutely something very strange about observing a powerful storm. Yeah, and then the normal background noise of your life being interrupted by a cosmic sounding crack. Definitely.
definitely.
Um, and I mean, there's sometimes they do they make you jump if it's
Hmm.
sudden enough, fast enough. It's just yeah. Dawn says I got zapped by a phone line. Wow,
Oh,
a old corded phone and above ground
geez.
lines back in the day. Oh man, yeah, yep. No fun. I mean, always everyone be careful. This is I'm not necessarily glorifying storm as being you know
Oh, I
perfectly
love them.
harmless,
But they're
but
definitely like take some caution for sure. But I mean, I just love a big, loud storm. It's so nice, you
yeah,
know.
it's something. It's something to I mean, because you again, like you said, there's some I can't imagine living in an area where there's storms all the time. That must be I wonder is it possible to get used to them? I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure, right? I mean, maybe
Yeah.
if they're
Huh.
expecting, if they know what to expect from them, and they're nice kind of storms. But of course, those areas typically they get, oh, I mean, like the Philippines and Florida and down in the coast, some of those that come through there off the ocean, those are pretty terrifying. Whole different energy to them, I think. And like where I'm at, where it's tornadoes, but I think that it's almost like there's a personality to these types of storms. Like the ones coming off the ocean are just, it's like the ocean is just coming up on the land, it's incredible. And I think that, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'll be covered in this topic for sure. It definitely works with the topic.
Well, and I mean the way they will just they'll be going in, and this goes for all kinds of not just thunderstorms, but tornadoes
Hey,
and
I'll be
hurricanes
right
and
back.
everything.
Just 1 second.
Oh, no problem. Um, also, I one of the articles for everyone that's listening here in the chat. I have article. It's actually from a weather themed website. It's from AccuWeather, which I believe is like a major weather company. Um, and so I'll just mention this here. It's the title of this article is Ghost Hunter: Thunderstorms Cause an Increase in Paranormal Activity. So I think that's fascinating, and that's something I've heard. And every so often, when I'm looking for true stories for my experiences, my shows and experiences, I'll find an account where someone will say, "I had this weird thing happen, where there was a storm, and right during the middle of the storm, I saw like a shadow figure." Uh, so, all right, and had this experience, and it does pop up every so often. So that's really really fascinating. That it's not. I don't think I'm making this up here. So, but yeah, I'm looking at the chat here. Uh, let's see here. Looking at yeah, Don shared it. Also, for everyone that listens to these shows, if you if you listen to these shows on the podcast or YouTube feeds, I definitely recommend joining the Discord server because there's you get to see pictures and messages from everyone in chat, messages I don't get to read on the show. It's more of a social interaction that way as well. Everyone can say hi to each other and everything, and it's really nice to be able to do that. So definitely
Oh yeah,
recommend.
I think Discord's pretty awesome for sharing like articles and just ideas and for visiting. It's really fun.
It is.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I found this article here. It's actually from a weather website, from AccuWeather, and it's from the it's basically like from a weather alert system, uh, and they have links and everything. You can get that done, but
Yeah.
Let's see here. Where is the? Okay. The I just got to back up here
No, I
because
do wonder about like if with paranormal activity or something that I wonder if the spirits are like waiting for these energy bursts from these storms. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah,
if there is activity in those locations and the storm starts to kind of ramp up, if they're like feeding off of the power of the storm, or if it's enlivening them, and if it's changing, giving them more strength or something, maybe that would explain, some of the activity, or that there's increased paranormal activity, or there seems to be an increased possibility for the activity. If they're feeding off of that kind of open air power that's generated by the storms, kind of like hair standing up on end when lightning is fixing to strike. It's like
right.
everything kind of could be.
Well, we know that it's said that they feed off of just the energy in devices and in the wiring in people's own homes. So if they can do that, then there's no reason. I don't think that they couldn't feed on, again, like you said, the energy just in the air,
Right.
in the area. I do also wonder about the possibility of them, sort of like with the wind, but like travel using storms to travel from place to place,
Oh, yes.
um, like in the sky, and then just, I don't know, riding the lightning down and sort of just showing up in a place, especially in cases where um, you find like accounts of people saying, "I've never had a weird experience in my house or this place where I'm staying at until we had a storm, and then I saw something or heard something." And so that's what makes me wonder about that. Is nature, our forces of nature, like storms and winds and I mean, who knows what else, but those two in particular, is it possible for consciousness to sort of use those, attach to those, and travel with them from place to place, and either direct them or just travel wherever they go and just go with them, um, to get from place to place. I do wonder about that as well. So, but so this article here, I finally got to work. I had to, the reader immersive reader mode on Microsoft Edge usually works, but every once in a while, a website will say no, we don't like that. You can't do that here. So, but anyway, so this article says thunderstorms stir energy in the atmosphere, and according to those who research paranormal activity, they may just stir the ghostly manifestations of those long dead. That's a subheadline or subtitle here from this article here. That's not a very long article, but it does talk about this paranormal investigator that talks about how they had they've looked into this before, and this is fascinating to me too. This group that they're talking about is made up of um, current and former law enforcement people, which always just is amazing to me because you have people here that are trained to observe things and and to try to figure out what's going on. So, but they talk about now. This is according to let me scroll up here and find who this was about or who this came from. So this is about Mark Keys is the person that the is sort of they're interviewing or talking, getting information from this article, and so it says that Keys is a retired police detective who said he has had an interest in paranormal phenomena since his youth. But so anyway, let me scroll back down here to. So they talk about in some cases, apparitions and shadows are often seen by people who claim their homes are haunted, and in many cases, there's of course lights flickering, electronic devices turning on and off. This happens again sometimes when there's storms going on, other times not so much. But uh, this is just again drawing energy possibly from either devices or, like we said, the weather here. So um, and so yeah, they talk about how they have the psychic medium who seems to be pretty accurate. Um, will usually will say that after a thunderstorm or if there's a moon cycle or different times of year, they are witnessing psychically a lot, or no, physically a lot more activity. So that's also fascinating. So it's not a long article, but whenever I find these articles that are not from paranormal themed websites,
Yeah.
uh, I like to include them because, again, you could say that the paranormal based websites are possibly more biased and whatever you want to say, but then you have these other sites that they're not connected to that directly. So
Yeah. It gives it kind of more perspective. But I definitely think that it has to, there's something about the power of the storms, the change in the atmosphere, the barometric pressure and everything that it probably does change just the opportunity for there to be more like paranormal activity or more psychical activity of some kind. I'm sure that there's some type of, we haven't figured it out quite yet, but I'm sure there is some kind of connection with the way that it affects the mind, and that maybe the increase in just, I don't know if it's the free flowing electricity, like the electromagnetic field changing like that, or if it's got something to do with the magnetism too. That could have something to do with it, because we've talked a lot about how, just magnetic fields in general of the earth and how they can fluctuate and how that can kind of induce a certain state of mind and things like that. So it could be all those things at once, in a perfect storm scenario, making it sort of more likely. And then as far as people having um, more intense psychic experiences, that if they're already predisposed, or maybe if they're not even, maybe even people who don't usually have those, experiences start to have more of a chance of having those experiences. And it reminds me of like a lighthouse, or if you're out at the ocean, but that there's something different about, location and about the climate. It has a lot to do with, I think, the way that I think a person reflects their environment in a lot of ways eventually, or like it has something to do with that.
yeah,
You
I mean
think?
lighthouses in a way they're like man made miniature mountains. And
Right.
we've done whole shows on mountains and how there's all kinds of high strangeness around those.
And
Um,
skyscrapers, there's that too.
yeah, we should probably do a show on that too because I've heard of plenty of accounts of those being having activity around them too. So
Right.
that might be a good one to do later. But yeah, definitely. I think that the elevation, I don't know. I think that maybe when you get further away from the ground, where even like the gravity, I guess that also go to pressure, like you were saying too. But where the gravity is maybe slightly different, um,
Yeah.
it seems like that's possible.
Well, then too, though, you have like very low, like below sea level. Like if you go south, or if you go into like some of these more, like lower than sea level, or, level
Mm,
with the ocean, that they have the air is so thick and there's so much humidity and everything. Think like New Orleans or like the deep south. There's a whole sort of a lot of haunting there. So it's like maybe they're different types of, I don't know.
yeah,
Jeez.
could be. I mean, that's the thing. There's so many variables that it's impossible to nail everything down. That's always also like how we've talked before about one of the shows we did a while back on water, weird water phenomenon, and how that doesn't matter if it's salt water or fresh water. There's weird stuff that happens everywhere, but they're two different types of water. They're completely
Mhm.
in as far as what's in them and everything. So um, I don't know. I wonder if too with the storms when it comes to lightning and all that, the way it changes the air um, in the path of the lightning and all
Oh, you can
that as
definitely
well.
feel it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really really amazing and just the like I said, I didn't think much of it as far as there being any connections until I've had just like I said 3 experiences, um, and so that and I just figured well we better do this because that's before I forget but and there's just so many accounts of people having experiences, but I do have one more article here we can talk about. I might have accidentally closed it. So let me bring it back up again. Open it again so we can have it. But and here. So this is one of those paranormal theme websites. Um, it's not
Uh-oh. Your mic is cutting in and out for me. Maybe it'll smooth out. Uh-oh. Oh, James, I think it's cutting in and out a little bit.
Connection.
Oh, shoot.
People. Oops, sorry.
Oh, it just seems like it's cutting in and out just a little bit.
Huh. That's weird. Maybe we're having some.
No, it's okay now.
Oh, okay. So talk about how weather and the
it's okay.
paranormal. People talk about it a lot, of course, within ghost hunter circles. So it talks about in historical context throughout history. People have connected these things, especially when it comes to ghost stories, even without the lightning, but just winds and all that. It's also rooted in folklore. But then it's talking here about various conditions are believed to influence paranormal activity. Researchers have examined how factors like humidity, temperature, and barometric pressure, as we were talking about, might affect paranormal sightings. Humidity is fascinating because that's water. And we've talked before about how water seems to be a connection, especially when it's like moving water.
Oh, yeah. And, fog.
Yeah, fog and
Fog
mist.
really is interesting.
Yeah. There's a whole book on that. I think it's by Travis Watson about sightings of anomalous things in like during or before and during and after fogs and mists and things. So I've heard him talk about before on other shows. But it says here high humidity can create an eerie atmosphere. It can also increase the conductivity of the air, potentially aiding in spirit manifestation. So I wonder if that is you were talking about New Orleans, and I mean we've heard anyone that's looked into these topics knows that area is just said to be extremely active,
Right.
and just so much of it. So maybe that's part of it. It's right there and around all that water. I mean, like, there's a lot of places. I mean, almost everywhere is around water to one degree or another. But but then we have reports of everything happening everywhere. So I don't know. Sudden temperature drops are also commonly reported during paranormal encounters. And a lot of times most of the time you hear about cold spots, but these can also I've heard of warm spots or hot spots in some rare cases too. And so this is almost like miniature weather in a way in a location.
Oh, it reminds me of there was this guy. I can't remember what state it was in, but it was on like one of those paranormal shows on television. And the guy, he could make it like rain inside the house. That was the phenomenon that was going on. I'll have to post it in the Discord. But he was, I guess, wherever he was, like the first house he was in, he kind of seemed to go into a sort of trance. And, people thought that maybe he was possessed or something. I don't know. It started to rain in the house, and people couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And they thought that there was like a pipe leaking. But they left the house and went to another house because, of course, it was raining in the house. And it was doing it there too. And people reported that they saw that the rain was coming like from the side and from the ground up and all of this. And then, and this was witnessed by police officers too. And he was taken, I don't remember it was one of those, true paranormal shows. That's it. The original Rain Man. Somebody just posted that. And he was even taken to a jail cell, and it rained in there too. So very weird with that. Like the weather was inside around him.
Well, it makes me think of too people reporting that, not even connecting it to any one individual, but I've heard accounts of water appearing and rain appearing in homes as being
Yeah.
paranormal activity. So if he was aware of it, I wonder how many people aren't aware of it that have had similar experiences.
Don't
And
know.
that has to come from somewhere, that moisture that, but then how is it changed or controlled or not? How is it? Yeah, how is it arranged that way? I don't know, but that is fascinating. I've heard of that. I've heard of um, just people finding puddles of water in like on a floor in their house
Yeah. Or
and
like water
not.
footsteps, sort of.
Yes, yes, I've heard of that
Incorporated.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, or on even on tile floors, like hard floors, just people finding footsteps, and some of those you get to those lead back to legends or reports of someone in an area that unfortunately may have drowned. I've heard that
Right.
connected to the footsteps and everything, but not always when it comes to just people finding pools of, or not pools, but like puddles of water and in buildings and not being able to track down a source of it.
Mhm.
There's no leak they can find, that could have made it. Um, so that is always amazing. I've heard of that the rain or the drops of water, not necessarily so much where it's like a rain, but just people having water drops materialize around them and then fall as well. So
Oh, you
yeah, I
know what?
wonder.
It reminds me of. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, just say I wonder if there's some kind of. I mean, is that the people's minds affecting things without them meaning to? I think that could be possible. Maybe I don't know.
Mhm. I don't know. But you know, the whole lightning thing I've heard, I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner, but that the way that lightning, if you look from, like if you're looking from space, essentially, or like the upper atmosphere, the way that lightning, striking the earth, that it's kind of looks like the same sort of firing that's going off in a human's mind, like or in a brain of any creature, I suppose it has. But that the lightning sort of looks like activity occurring in that location, like the same way that activity in a certain part of the mind firing off, the neurons, that sort of thing. I wonder if it's something like that. It could be too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It's I don't know. There's also just people that have been, of course, we've all heard of this, struck by lightning, and in some
Oh yeah.
cases several times. There's um there's a story, and I'm looking online for it right now, about this man who, over his lifetime, was struck by lightning several times,
Oh,
uh,
that's
which
I bet
is
that's
terrible.
terrifying. Yeah.
But then after he passed away, um, and he was buried, lightning struck his grave.
Oh my gosh.
So then you have to wonder, um, what is going on there? I mean, is there something in his physical body that is still wired a certain way to,
Conducting it
um,
or
yeah,
attracting it. Yeah.
I
Wow.
just don't know, but I mean, it's one thing to have these experiences in your life and all that. I mean, it's terrible, but then to have that when even after your consciousness is not even in there anymore,
Mhm.
that's just really wild to me. I found some links. I'll put one in the chat here
Oh
regarding
yeah.
this,
I'll have to.
but
That's interesting. I've never heard of that.
yeah, it's the
That,
only time
I
I've
mean, he was
ever heard
already
of
in the
that.
ground. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I've
And
only
to
heard of it
live
with.
with that.
Yes, yeah. Um, I've only heard of it with just one person. That's also another thing about it. Maybe, I mean, not to say that it couldn't have happened to anyone else over time, but there's only one case of this I've ever
Well,
heard
to
of it happen.
survive it, it's really amazing too. The fact that
Yes.
that he survived being struck by lightning, and then you know, and then to have it happen again, but then to go into the ground and have that happen, that's so his whole body just, but to take the power of the lightning is just unbelievable. People who do survive that, it's just amazing.
Yeah. And I've heard people on shows and things talk about how after they were struck once, they felt like they were being chased by the storms, which is also terrifying. To where whenever they heard a storm, They
Oh,
tried
yeah.
their best to,
Terrified.
stay away from whatever, anything that could connect the energy and all that. So yeah, it's a whole
Yeah.
terrifying line of research you can do if you really want to. But again, is there consciousness directing these storms toward these people? I hope not, because that is wild. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there some kind of I always wonder when it comes to all these things, yes, there can be random things that happen, but also when it comes to any kind of attempted communication or interaction with people and unseen, unknown forces or consciousness or beings, when
My
they're trying to
friggin'
communicate.
neighbors. Sorry, my neighbors are
Oh,
coming and going and acting
oh,
all crazy next door. So if I have to mute up, it's because they're like being loud.
no, no problem.
Essentially, because I'm just outside here.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, is whenever there's any kind of interaction, and there's what seem to be negative as results or consequences.
Hmm.
Is that intended, or is that just a side effect or a consequence of the attempted interaction? And that other forces don't even mean to have happen, but because maybe
Right.
they don't know exactly what they're doing, or there's some kind of
Oh my.
um, loss of the message or whatever that it can cause this goes into all other topics, but anyway, I wonder about that with storms too when it comes to how they move and why they move and where they move.
Yeah. I don't know. It goes back again that they do seem, I mean, more and more, it seems like the forces of nature that they have an intelligence behind them, that they're aware, sometimes, made aware of, even though we're so, small in the big picture of everything, that it's like they are observing everything or that they are moving over, you know, maybe they don't always notice, but that sometimes, and if they do, maybe it's not a good thing that they be noticing people individually or anything like that. But it does seem like there's an intelligence to the storms and to these phenomena in nature, and that there's an interaction occurring, and with our world and with, I guess, that it's just as, I don't know, seeing the elements of nature as much as we see, like when we see the natural world of animals and other things like that, that, there's an intelligence, a sentience to it. And the storms
Right.
must have a sentience too, and that they're interacting with us, in the only way that the way that they do, the way that they express.
Yeah. Well, I have more in this article here we can go over. So it says electrical storms and paranormal activity. It says that these storms are a significant point of interest in the study of weather and paranormal activity. The increased electromagnetic activity during storms is believed to fuel supernatural phenomenon. And then, of course, it mentions EMF and ghosts. Electromagnetic fields are a crucial part of ghost hunting. And this is, again, coming from just that one sort of vantage point of the paranormal. So um, this is, uh, it's, yeah, just want to point that out there. But we do in these shows try to look at everything, but this is just from one point of view there. Electrical storms can create strong EMFs, which might explain the spike in paranormal activity during these storms. Says lightning and energy. Lightning provides a massive energy surge. Some theories suggest that spirits use this energy to manifest. So yeah, I think that's important there. The difference between just manifesting, but also just being around. And again, that goes back to the idea of are they always around, and then the storms come and give them the energy to do things, or again, can they travel through the storms? This
Right. I
also,
I like what you said about that, James. Like the idea that
yeah,
they might be traveling with the storm, or that it's some kind of culling or something. Could
yeah.
be.
I just wonder about that because of the sense I've gotten before uh, from wind. Whenever it's windy around me, sometimes not every time. That's the thing. It's not every time that the wind picks up around, like near my place, but only sometimes I'll get this sense when it's windy that there is consciousness in the wind, like a presence in it as it's going by. And So to me, it's not that much of a leap. If it's happening with wind somehow, then why couldn't it happen with storms? So that's something that I've always wondered about because of that as well. But now this article also, and the other article mentioned it too, and we may have to do a show on this at some point too, is the moon phases and paranormal activity.
Yeah.
The moon's phases are also considered in discussions of weather and paranormal activity. Full moons, in particular, are often associated with heightened supernatural events. I think we've touched on this before, but we never did a whole show on it. But go ahead there with your thoughts on that, Jen.
Oh, there's a lot of traffic going on right here for some reason, but so I was muting because
Oh,
people are just
sorry.
like all wound up, I guess. I don't know. So, because they're carrying on my street. But I do think that there is, with the intelligence of the wind itself, or that, that goes back to the four corners. It reminds me of that. At least in the myth, if you look at all the old maps and how you have a western wind or an ill wind, conversations like that, it makes me think of how there's a correlation there. And then it does, I mean, there's an intelligence to all of it, obviously, and we're
Mm-hmm.
interacting with it. And I think it's just when it brushes up against our environment, it not only impacts the mind, but it impacts just I think the setting of everything and how much it affects us. We don't always realize it, like how much we're impacted by the environment and that we're living in. And it makes sense too into going into like people like the weather manipulation theory and conspiracy theories that I think it was said, I guess it was Lyndon Johnson, and he said that whoever controls the weather, controls the world, this sort of thing. And I think that, I don't know, I guess the impact of the weather itself and how much it can cause upheaval, but it can also, I don't know, as far as the impact on the paranormal world and the spirits at work in that environment. Good Lord. I'm going
No problem. But
to, I
yeah,
drove on. I'm going to
okay.
do this inside from now on. I guess I can't sit outside.
No problem. You're doing the best you can, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think
Mhm.
we'll have to do a moon show at some point too,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I think there's a lot to talk about there. We can do that. But
I immediately thought of
yeah,
that too. Just that you have the phases of the moon and the impact of that, and then you have the weather and the storms and everything. It's a natural environment constantly interacting with the human world. And we try as hard as we can to insulate ourselves from it, but it's impossible. I think that by
yeah,
building technological advances and a lot of the cityscapes and everything, that in a way it is an insulation from the natural world, but it's still, interacting no matter what. And maybe that's been a constant fear in the minds of humanity that, a fear of the dark, a fear of the weather. I think just having no control, you know, and realizing that, it's an uncomfortable feeling when it comes to those sorts of things. So, I don't know, because obviously there might be some type of, maybe it's not just mindless, thing, the weather, the climate, the moon. Maybe it's very closely interacting with the human world, and you know, and humans have either tried to enhance that or to negate it best they could, to whatever ends.
yeah. If you ever want to like think about how sort of whether or just how close the outside world is to your inside world, just go stand
Yeah.
in your door, like half in, half out of your door, and look at the side of your frame of your door.
Yeah,
Like your building is usually not going to be that thick. There's not
exactly.
that much between the outside and the inside. I mean, it's you know it's
The
there,
veil is
which is
thin.
good. Yes, exactly. It's there, but it's also, I mean, if you're comparing that to hurricane force winds or whatever,
Oh
that's
yeah.
not that much.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um, but also in the chat here, Don posted a link. Unsolved Mysteries: The Mysterious Abilities of Don Decker, and
That was the Rain
there's
Man. Yes, Don Decker. Thank you so much, Don, because
yeah.
that was exactly it.
I will try to remember to include this link in the episode description, but Also, for those, like I said in the beginning of the show, please join the Discord because I don't always remember to find all these links and put them in the episode description. So yeah, but it isn't. I mean, of course, we've already done a show on it, so we don't need to do it again. But this all seems to so much of this does seem to come back to water. It comes back to two things. It comes back to energy in all forms, and then water, and those interactions of all those things together. And so yeah, that's really. I'm glad we did this because it was just been on my mind, and I figure if I've had experiences, then other people must have had experiences similar to that. And
Absolutely. I'm so glad we got to it too, because it's been a while coming to talk about this, and I'm glad we got to talk about, and the correlations with your experiences that you had and the storms coming in. How many times too, or like if you think back through the memory files, that you come across events that were taking place during storms, something about it does make it more impactful. And maybe that's partly just that it was memorable because the stage was different, or because it was something to do with the enhancement of something due to all the, I guess the lightning have something to do with it. Maybe it sort of imprints, or maybe there's even an exchange where the storm kind of is taking something from these, maybe that's something too. I never thought about that, but maybe the lightning is taking something, with it when
well,
it
I've
goes through these
heard,
areas.
yeah, and I've heard that, and I don't know how this works because I'm not an electrician or a weather expert, but that in a lot of cases, with like ordinary or regular lightning, the appearance is that the lightning comes down, but it actually goes up or something like that, where it's not necessarily the
Ground
way it appears
lightning.
to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, So again, that could be it too. And then the other thing too, and I didn't think about this to look into it, but there's different types of lightning in different
There
parts of the
is, yeah.
world. And that I
Yeah.
didn't know that until I think Michael Strange mentioned that in one of his shows a while ago.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and I just had no idea that there was, and he shared like a link and some pictures or whatever of lightning just not moving down from the sky, but just moving like across the sky in
Yeah.
some place. That is just really wild to me. So,
Oh, out where he is. I bet he sees incredible displays of lightning. I would imagine out there with the desert and everything. I bet it's
mm,
amazing, you know.
yeah, yep, definitely. That's I wouldn't be surprised there too. Um, yeah. So let's see here. Looks like Theo shared a study here. Uh, let's see here. Shipping routes and emissions and thunderstorm lightning study. Let me see what this is here. It says how shipping might be making more lightning. That's fascinating. Thunderstorms directly over two of the world's busiest shipping lanes are more uh, are more intense than storms in other areas of the ocean. A new study offers theory. Huh. Okay, that's fascinating too. We'll have to look into that more off stream. But yeah, it's definitely storms have effects everywhere and on everything, and that makes me think again. Going back to the idea of what's causing the storms. Is it always external forces, or is it people gathering enough in certain locations or moving through at the same location over and over and over and over again that could cause these things? That's that's really amazing too to think about that. So, but I think we've covered the topic pretty well tonight, um, and I think that's probably a good place to end this show anyway. So, thank you all for being here and listening in, and special thanks to you, Jen, for being here with me and talking about this.
Thank you so much. I had a great time, and I'm glad I was able to make it. And we finally got to talk about this. And I look forward to next weekend's show. Thanks for having me,
Yeah,
James.
yeah, thank you, and of course, everyone, if you're here in the Discord, don't forget we have our trick or treat show coming up after this. So, so stick around for that if you are able and you'd like to call in. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal, once I find the place to stop this. There we go. Everyone take care.